Yes, and here we are once again on Friday morning. Friday, well, nearly it's coming up to afternoon if we're not quick. How are you today, Pat?
Grand Jude, it's I'll give me I've weather report. It's blinking cold, and the wind was howling there for a wee while, but it seems to have settled down now.
Are
But
you
it's
warm in
cold.
your heart?
Oh, I am warm in my heart. Hey, Jude, before we even start, let me tell you something.
Yeah,
Seeing we're both on the same sort of, I was reading a thing on the Manchester Evening News, and it said they killed their mother, and I thought this was a plural. Two sons had killed their mother.
yeah.
But this is where this whole thing about being politically correct or woke or whatever. It's a guy who uh, described himself as non-binary, and the Manchester Evening News used the pronoun they rather than he. And I'm starting, Jude. You know, someone I've had this discussion with you before, but I really don't. If you're gay, bisexual, lesbian, I don't give a monkey's. God lucky, all children are created equal. But see, when they start mangling on it, I thought two people had killed their mother, and it was total confusion until I read that it was a single person. That is where I cut the line on this sort of thing of being, this sort of woke. That's if they want to be called they. Dude, it's totally confusing. By the way, his father referred to him as he. He said the guy had mental illness and so on, so on. But the paper referred to him because he wanted to be called. He wanted to be non-binary, so they called him they. But
Crazy. I
dude, it
suppose,
was totally confusing. The headline. I
yeah.
thought two people had killed him.
Well, I mean,
Had killed her.
it
Sorry.
wasn't two people that killed him one after the other.
Yeah, but just as a former
I,
English lecturer and as a former journalist, I'm saying,
ah,
see, when we start messing with the language
that's
to accommodate this sort of right
crazy.
on stuff.
Crazy.
Yeah.
I filled in a questionnaire on the train yesterday and it said, male, female, other. And even that I find a little bit off-putting. It does seem to me to go against nature, but certainly, okay, give them a pass on that. But this thing about they, call me they, would you?
But this is not
That's
even
odd.
I'm not even making a point. Genuinely, I'm not even. It's the language that
Ah,
there was totally
yeah.
confusing.
But should we know that there's words we can't use anymore and so
Uh,
on? Anyway,
anyway,
anyway, more of that. Right. Let's go to the week has been a very busy week. On the same evening on Wednesday, the Scots were turned down for having a referendum. Westminster says no, no,
uh,
no. Now, and also that evening there was the famous Ireland's Future meeting in the
uh,
Ulster Hall. Did you watch that online, by the way, Pat?
no, I didn't. I forgot all about it.
I watched.
Uh,
I watched bits of it. I'll tell you the truth, Pat. This is awful to say. Remember that waterfront meeting,
uh,
and I
uh,
thought it was really good to see the turnout and so on. But there was bits of it I was bored.
I will. I did.
Bored.
There was a certain, and I'm not going to say anything. There's one speech. Hey, I would have recorded it and used to send people to sleep with. It was so bad. I'm not going to say who, but I remember thinking, if that's the best you can come up with, you see, for every one good speech, dude, there was a
Yeah,
couple of absolute
that's
doozies.
right. And
Yeah.
deliveries very even isn't the best either. But I have to say, Colin Harvey, you're almost your fellow townsman.
Uh,
Colin Harvey's final speech was pretty good. A wee bit melodramatic, but pretty good. At
yeah.
least he
Colin
used
was
it.
very good at the waterfront as well because I think he was annoyed that day about the way the whole thing had been projected on the BBC and talkback, that it
Yeah.
was a sort of a Republican
Oh
shindig, and
yeah.
where not. In fact, he was saying, it, look, wait a minute, this is civic nationalism, but this is a nice smear job you're doing.
But you see, how much coverage did it get in the media this time?
uh,
Practically nil. I thought I
uh,
didn't see anything hardly. I mean,
no.
I saw something in online newspapers, but I didn't see it heading up
But
Newsline 630
if
or
Nolan and Talkback can't do a sort of a hatchet job,
hmm,
it's I know if it's nice, just middle of the road, they're not
yeah,
interested. But
yeah.
if we can do a hatchet job, oh yeah, here
Did
this
you
is.
think? Do you think that was a very significant meeting? The second one. I mean, the fact that there is a second one and that there's
Jude, I think it's Jude. I keep saying this: the direction of travel is one way, and I
mm,
do think it's seriously significant. Jude,
mm,
it's building all the time. It's building,
mm,
building,
mm,
building.
mm.
And by the way, look on it, Jude. Here, seeing you brought up. Tell me your opinion. You're a guy who's lived through the north all your life, all in a
No,
short.
I wasn't here in the 70s.
Yeah, you were down. I was about to say, as apart from a sojourn out to Canada,
Huh.
but right. But you were born, raised in the north. What is the point of Stormont?
Well, that was the question that Brian Feeney asked. In fact, he
Yeah,
said, "What is the point of the state?" it was set up. He said, I mean, he was typically, very typically Brian Finney, very abrupt and, chopping out his phrases, but saying, what is the point? It was set up as a sectarian state to survive, forever because you'd have a 2/3 majority. That's stopped. He says there's only 2 counties now that are unionists. The other four are nationalists. The Irish government needs to set up an assembly, and I like that. Several speakers did this. The Irish government needs to set up a citizens' assembly now, and get
But
working on it.
I wasn't even thinking about the past. What is the point of storming now? If the
Oh, none at all.
DUP,
None at all.
I wasn't even aware that stood up. I wasn't aware that Finney had asked that question. But like, I was thinking, like, look at what's happening now. If this is the best Northern Ireland can do,
It really is absurd. And the trouble is, you see, the people who are making it really bad is the DUP by staying out of office. But let them go, fire away, guys. Keep digging, keep digging. Let's look across the water though and see Scotland. Westminster said no chance.
Yeah.
Now, Nicola Sturgeon has said that she will run the next general election, as essentially a referendum on Scottish independence. Do you see any dangers or difficulties there?
I do, and I think you see, it's like the Celtic and Rangers thing. There's the Nationals, and then there are the Unionists in Scotland as well. I think if she just runs it as an SNP thing, that it becomes a party thing rather than a movement.
Absolutely.
I think she seriously needs to broaden the base.
Yeah.
Apparently the Greens want to go for an independence. There are cultural groups that want to go for independence. There are various others as well, Jude. And I think I read somewhere that one of the Jude, the name escapes me again, that somebody said that if they're really serious, they should ask or set up a convention and make sure that in each constituency there is only one person.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more. I read that
rather than splitting the vote 10 different ways.
Yeah.
The person that's running for, be it SNP, be it the Greens, that there's only one person, and then that constituency has a choice to vote for independence or not.
I totally agree with that. There's just one snag that strikes me though. When the election's over and the people have been elected, do those people then go into the Scottish Parliament?
Yep.
Will they retain their Green credentials and their SNP credentials, or?
Well, Jed, I don't know how it's going to all work afterwards. I presume there's going to be some strategists working out now what happens afterwards.
I mean, you see, Pat, that would have an effect back. I mean, if people are going to sit, well, I'm a Green, say, right? So yeah. I go as the chosen candidate, the pulled candidate for such and such a place. I go into Parliament. Do I then turn back into a Green? Because if I do, people will know that in advance. So in a way, you've ruined the whole point of.
Don't accept that. Like if I am the agreed candidate and I'm the SNP and you're the Green, right? I think what Sturgeon is saying, the bigger issue for everyone in Scotland is democracy, the right to govern themselves.
Yes.
And okay, if you go back in and you're still a Green, I don't know how much of a conflict is that is with the SNP, as long as the bigger picture is that you're wanting Scottish independence.
But you see, when people are voting, they'll realise, yes, this person is the agreed candidate. But they'll also be thinking, well, actually, this person is the agreed candidate and he or she is a Green. And after this is over, either, it may get a Scottish independence or it may not, but they'll be sitting in as a Green MSP.
I accept that, but I'd be working on the basis, Jude, that in most cases, the vast majority of those candidates will be the SNP. They have the biggest share of the vote by far.
Well, there are. You see, we're back again to the thing where we're seeing one party. I like the notion of sort of wiping the slate clean and having people running solely as candidates. If there was a way you could do that and then not go into Parliament, I think that would be clean cut. Because I think there'd be suspicions.
I think that abstentionist thing, that just leaves a vacuum that the ruling elite just takes over.
It's a tricky one. Got it. Yeah, well, I must say that most of the articles I've read are a bit pessimistic about Nicola
Like a
Sturgeon,
Sturgeon.
and the hopes for independence as a result of the rebuff. Just one other thing I want to say about this, Pat. I think I did a blog on it. The Scottish people, well, I would say the odds are that most of the Scottish people want to independence now. That's my
Yeah,
own view. We know for bloody sure, except something strange is going on, that most of the people in Ireland want Irish people to rule.
yeah.
And both Scotland and Ireland are going cap in hand to Britain, to Westminster, and saying, "Can we?" And they're saying, "No, you can't. No, you can't."
No,
And yet,
but
Ukraine, they're pouring money into it, and they're
uh,
sending weapons. Why? Because they have to govern themselves.
yeah. But you know, there's a big question mark, absolutely massive question mark, that the British Supreme Court gets to, which is basically this English Supreme Court,
Yeah.
gets to decide for the Scottish people about whether they can have an election.
Uh,
Not the Scottish Parliament, not the say it again, Scottish electorate, but a couple of probably Eton and appointed judges
yeah.
down in London. Like,
Mm.
I find that amazing.
Well, you see,
Surely, by the way, I have one thing. Sorry, you can just if Nicola Sturgeon is really smart, and she is, I would think that they should be playing big time. Not saying Scottish independence, but saying Scottish democracy.
well, that was the first words out of her mouth. She said that. This has
Yeah,
moved now on to the point of question of democracy.
yeah.
But actually, she's perfectly aware that the two knit together very nicely.
Aye,
The thing is, you see, there's at this point things can go either way in Scotland. I think either people feel, sort of like Barcelona, or where was it?
the Catalan or the Basque or the
What?
the
Which that
Catalans.
part of Spain anyway.
Uh,
Will people be discouraged because here's this big tough bully that's saying, "No, you're not. You stay. That's
uh,
it." So why should I waste my time? Or does it galvanize people? And the typical Scot would say, "I'm bloody sure you're not telling us what to do. We're more and more people."
here's a question for you. You know, I have talked to a couple of real rabid Scottish nationalists, and they
Yeah,
are very determined people. See,
that's right.
after this, see when it starts feeding into their brain,
Uh,
the feeling that, wait a minute, the democracy's been denied, that and they hate, a lot of them hate the English. They
yeah,
really
yeah. Well,
genuinely,
that's always been there. For
yeah,
football
that's
and
I.
everything else.
But when does it tip over to someone, maybe a wee explosion on a railway line, or a wee explosion at some building, or something? Just to say, no, pardon the expression, but fuck you.
Yeah. I think, well, there is quite a possibility of that, but would that not damage the cause more than it would help it? I mean, you
Well,
had an
that, aye, but
you had an explosion in Derry.
that's exactly that's what they said in Northern Ireland as well. But
Yeah.
like, when does it like? The thought occurred to me. I was having a conversation it's a good while ago, and I remember this Scottish guy, and he was really annoyed about the fact that he says we were taken out of Europe against our will. He says
Mhm.
the Parliament in London, Boris Johnson. It was the start of Boris Johnson. He says that buffoon is telling us what to do.
Mhm.
And when you read some of the stuff Johnson actually said about Scotland, and he says, yet these people are ruling over us.
Mm. Do you think if there was somebody to say to shatter a building or set off a bomb somewhere, not necessarily involving human life, do you
Yeah.
think that would be a plus for the cause of Scottish independence or
No,
a
I
negative?
wouldn't, Jude. But I like the thought occurred to me. There's always a catalyst, a spark for
Mm.
something.
Mm.
And the thought occurred to me: if I was a good rabid nationalist living in Scotland, reading that judgment, that it's the Westminster Parliament that will decide. A court in England rules
Yeah,
that it's the
yeah.
Westminster Parliament. So much, by the way, for this concept of the voluntary union. What is that? Like the Eagles, you can leave any time, but there's no way out. Yeah,
You can check
yeah.
out anytime.
But
Yeah, yeah.
uh,
Well, yes, I thought that was a pretty good one, all right. But sure, we all knew that from the beginning. We all
yeah.
knew.
But they were spinning it, Judith, for years. This is this is a voluntary union, and it's helped us all. And not, they're the reality is bollocks that it's simply not true.
Yeah, yeah. Again, it's hard to know what she should do.
Yeah,
I think it's quite important what she does because it has echoes for us here. Although on the
Well,
other hand, I think
she has 2 years now to come up with her strategy. Now, she said she's turning this into a referendum on Scottish independence,
yeah,
and I do think she has to broaden the base. I really genuinely
yeah,
do.
yeah, yeah.
Now, and I presume she's got academics and people who do
Aye,
political
aye,
science
yeah,
working for her. And by the time the election comes on, I hope they've broadened the base to
yeah.
include a lot more than just an SNP.
I expect it will. I expect it will. I certainly hope they will.
Yeah,
Not that I don't think our own question is still progressing and progressing, as you say, in a very favourable way. If you're a nationalist or Republican,
yeah,
so regardless of Scotland, I don't think that'll really put any brakes onto Ireland.
yeah,
But at the same time, give you an extra boost, I suppose, if you saw Scotland pushing hard and getting independence, because people
yeah,
would then quickly say, "End of
yeah.
this United Kingdom." Okay, well, shall we talk about holiday homes for a moment?
Yes, go ahead.
Briefly? Apparently, something that took my breath away. Apparently, there's 65,000 holiday homes in the south of Ireland.
Yeah,
65,000 of them.
a
And
hell of a
most
lot of
of
them
them are
probably in
run as a
Donegal.
commercial scheme.
Say again?
Most of them, in this article I read, are run as, I said commercial scheme, but what I meant was as a sort of a business. That is to say,
Oh,
if
yeah.
they weren't in it, they'd be renting it out to somebody.
Well, if you go down by West Donegal, you'll see quite a lot. And years ago, and I mean years ago, about 20 years ago, I was in down Spiddle
Yeah.
on Spidell and
Oh,
West
yes. Yeah.
and the Connemara area.
Place with 10 names.
Uh, exactly. Anyway, me and my dear missus, we were one of them cheap hotel breaks that we used to go on.
Yeah.
Anyway, we walked somewhere, I can't remember, dude. Anyway, anyway, it was the gloaming, as my father, an Ulster Scotsman, would have said, as we were walking home, maybe at about 5 o'clock on a November evening. And I remember looking around saying, why a lot of houses here with no lights on? And I was chatting to a guy then in the hotel, the barman, and I says, what's all that about? He says, oh, they're holiday homes, all holiday homes. And Jude, if you go down by Dunfanaghy and Gweedore and Donegal, and you see the number of houses up on hills with no lights on them, and you're going, they're holiday homes.
Oh, so would you be opposed to those, Pat? Does that seem to you a good thing for the community, or is it a bad thing? Do the locals sort of say, rub their hands, and say, "Oh yeah, here they're coming back again. It'd be lovely to see them again"?
A
Or
lot
do
of
they say,
no. Jude, I haven't really thought about it, but I do remember as a young reporter in Donegal, I remember a lot of locals didn't like it. The native people, they said
"Why not?"
because, as I said, it was breaking up the sense of community. Empty houses. Secondly, people like your crowd coming in from Belfast and buying holiday homes in Donegal,
Is
increasing
that an
the price.
anti-British remark?
Absolutely. Taking over land, increasing site prices, increasing house prices. And as well as that, these people were coming down for maybe 2 or 3 weeks, 2 or 3 months at most, maybe in the summer as kids are off, and changing the whole sort of social fabric of the area. They were bringing in English-speaking people and whatever. And they said the whole community, the whole sense of community that was there in the 50s and 60s was being decimated.
Were you never tempted to have a little pied-à-terre, a little bolt hole for yourself in somewhere like Galway or Kerry?
Oh, absolutely. Jude, if I could afford it, I would.
Would you?
Absolutely.
So it's not a question of principle; it's a question of
not at all.
finance.
Jude. Let me put it on the record. I'm a hypocrite. I would most certainly. I would say if I had the money, Jude. There's a wee place outside Glenties that I just absolutely adore, Jude. And if I could go and live there,
If you
I'd
could
be there
damage
tomorrow.
if you could damage the community, you would.
Oh, certainly. Speak Irish as much as you want.
Well, the thing that was mentioned in this article is that the government's considering paying these holiday home people €800 a month so that refugees or immigrants can be put in there. And both Roderick O'Connor, I'm not sure what he is, he's a minister of, what is he?
For children.
For children. Well, Roderick O'Connor was speaking yesterday and Leo Varadkar was speaking a few days before, and both used almost exactly the same words. They said, of course, we must consult with people. You need to take into account the feelings of local people when immigrants come. But no community has got a veto on who lives there. Nobody has a veto on it. And that's quite true when you think about it. None of us can say, oh, no, I don't want that person here. Get out.
Exactly. And rightly so. Jude, there was last night, I saw this thing. This guy put up this thing about somebody from Ukraine is living around about West Clare, and he's got this big Audi 4x4. This guy's saying, why are we paying for accommodation for guys like this? He's of fighting age and he should be in Ukraine rather than over here. I don't know what the background is, but Jude, there's 70,000 Ukrainians apparently now in the Republic of Ireland. Right, but here's the thing. It's a matter of record from impeccable sources, multiple sources, that Russia is bombing the shit out of Kiev and whatever. It's bombing. The Russians are bombing hospitals, schools, civilian apartments.
Yeah.
The number of people have died has been. There's no dispute about that.
Yeah.
Now, Jude, most of those people, as we've said a million times, don't want to be here. And the minute the war's over, they will go home again. The vast majority of them. Ukraine apparently is a lovely place to live, and it was doing extremely well. A lot of people were doing very, very well. Now, Jude, see, what worries me is a lot of the time is a couple of bigots can turn something that's actually a decent thing for the Irish people to do into a sort of, what would you say, almost racist. And so, and I think, Jude, if I had a house spare, I would give it to the Ukrainians. They didn't choose to come here.
Yeah. I think myself that the Ukrainians refugees are sort of substitutes for travelers. The Irish people don't trust the travelers. They don't want them living near them. They agree that they have to make a living and they have to have human rights and so on. But at the same time, they'd rather have human rights far away from them. When you just mentioned that most of these Ukrainians, given the chance to be going back home again,
some of them are already starting to go home again.
The question is this: so why would we have to? Why would we want to say that? Why? I mean, that's seen as being a plus that they're not going to stay. I mean, what have you got against?
There's a lot of guys making a lot of money on this. I'm aware of one guy has bought up previously abandoned buildings and shoved in stuff into them, beds and covers and stuff, and they're making, and I mean, serious money.
Are these Irish people?
Yeah. And I would love to know how much supervision and inspection of their premises. I would really genuinely love to know.
I mean, that's maybe a wee bit sideways from the point that I'm making, and that is that whether or not we were saying, okay, look after these people while they're here, they're really in a bad way, and then they want to go back, so relax. And I'm saying, if you have to say, relax, they're going to go back, that suggests you don't really want them in the first place.
Yeah, there's some people like that.
I actually think that if we could integrate those 70,000 or 50,000 or 20,000 Ukrainians, I think that'd be good for this country. I mean,
Jude, I have long held the view that different people and different cultures and a bit of a mix is always a plus. There's always, I always regard that as an add-on.
But you see, a lot of the Irish people don't. They see outsiders just come out and changing the culture and having with their foreign.
There's some parts of our culture badly need changing. Jude, years ago that some of the things that we were as a nation, we badly needed somebody from the outside to come on and say, like when you love somebody to go out in Saudi Arabia and change that culture.
Yeah, well, we're not quite at the beheading stage.
No, we're not going there, but
we're stoning to death. Okay, so we're down to 6 minutes now, Pat. You got any stories there you feel I haven't touched on?
No, what do you call it? Did you read about the? I think it was the Irish Times. Did you read the guy? He referenced Seamus Heaney about the American Indians.
I did. I thought that was a very interesting article.
Right, go on and explain to the people.
Well, what the guy was saying was, he talked about Seamus Heaney giving a lecture, and the people, it was about poetry, I guess, and it was in one of the big shot places in universities, Harvard. And somebody asked him what did he think of the way things were in the North. That was the time the trouble was going on. And he thought for a minute, and he said, how would you feel if the native people here in Connecticut or in whatever it was, supposing they were a minority and they were part of the, say, a third of the community or of the state, and then they grew and they became the majority in the state. And then they said they wanted to join up with the other native people areas throughout the states. So essentially, it was saying, well, I thought it wasn't a good comparison, but he did
No, I
raise
don't
the
think it was.
point that America is built on blood, and
Uh,
so is nearly everywhere else. According to this guy, Michael O'Loughlin, in an article today, thought
yeah,
that was really good. He said Poland, Latvia, and he listed them off. And he said they've all built on going in there, smashing the culture of the local people, killing the local people, and imposing your culture and your industry and your all these things. Probably some good things, but essentially you were smashing them, and that's the way it
yeah,
happened. It happened in
yeah,
Australia, it happened in New Zealand, it
yeah.
happened in Africa, so on.
Yeah. No, I was reading it, Jude, and the thought occurred to me, you know, I'm not sure it was a great analogy, but hey, you know the one thing it came back, he made a very, very good point about the suppression of the native people and the
Yeah.
killing of them and all. And he offered also referenced the small town of Virginia in County Cavan,
Yes, yes.
that state Virginia and all that. But do you remember, Jude, there was a guy called General Phil Sheridan. He was an Irishman. He was from Cavan, and he might have been from Virginia, but
Yeah.
he was famous for the quote, "The only good Indian is a dead Indian."
Yes, I
So,
was thinking about that today. Yeah.
uh,
We grew up with
so,
that.
so the Irish have had a role, not a glorious role.
Oh,
And there was a
oh,
couple of other Irish guys and the cavalry as well who didn't cover themselves in glory.
no, no.
But
Yeah,
I was trying to figure. Your man said that the absence of the native people. He said when he was walking through the woods in Washington or Connecticut, where the hell it was,
mm,
you could almost the silence. You could almost feel their presence.
yeah,
Now,
yeah.
do you believe that, or do you think that's
I think
another?
that's true. Anytime I saw, there used to be quite a few native people, Indian, we would
Uh,
call them, in Winnipeg when I was living there. And I tried to teach some of them, and I can tell you now, I totally failed because
why?
they were withdrawn. They never would volunteer a question. If they answered a question, it'd be slowly, quietly, you hardly could
Uh,
hear them.
uh,
And you would see when they came to live in Winnipeg, came off the reservations, they fell apart. They became drunks. The girls became
uh,
pregnant.
uh,
Just the whole thing. They are a broken people. They're
uh,
a broken people, and that's the price you pay when you go in and say, "Here, we're going to bring all the benefits." There's a lovely little scene vignette in. Are you watch? Have you watched The White Lotus?
I've started it.
Well,
Uh,
I suggest all 10,000 people listening to our voices now, I'm saying check out The White Lotus, because at one point the young girl in the family is saying, "Oh, Dad, you condescending to the local." It's set in Hawaii,
uh,
and these are Americans visiting, and the young girl is saying, why are you so condescending to these people? Look at they have to be the waiters here, and they clean the rooms, and you're contemptuous, you know." And the father of the family says, "Yeah, that's true, that's true." He says, "We came, we killed them, we smashed their culture. They're broken people. What am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to give
uh,
away my money to them? Am I supposed
uh,
to go and,
uh,
it's a real liberal's dilemma. You know,
uh,
evil has been done. You know you're standing on that and where you are because of that, and yet what can you do?
Here, just a quick change the subject one
Yeah.
more time.
Only
Our
one minute left.
our pro-consul Heaton Harris yesterday
Yeah.
went ahead with the budget, and he says there's a 660 million black hole in the northern economy, and he says even the ministers who stayed and did bugger all to sort it out. And I think he was basically asked, what's the point of having a Stormont if they can't make hard political decisions? And what was the other? But he said, "Oh, if you don't agree with me budget, come back and set up the assembly again." What do you make of all that, Dr. Collins?
Well, I just think he's using what pressure he has to, squeeze the DUP as much as he can, in the hope they don't want to have. I mean, the North has always been a pain in the ass to the British. They
Uh,
don't want to have the whole place fall apart. No, Stormont. They'd much prefer to see Stormont ticking over nicely. So I think
uh,
they're trying to squeeze the DUP. I don't think it'll work. I don't think
no.
it'll work. So he's
Uh,
doing his best, I guess, as
uh,
an Englishman.
But Jude, you know, unless we've got only about 30 seconds.
Yeah.
You see that panel on the Ireland's future?
Oh, yeah.
They were all of the Protestant persuasion, and I think nearly every one of them said Brexit was the thing that was the catalyst for changing their opinion. I think that's going to be the catalyst for a lot of more.
That probably was the most significant thing happened in the last week. And it was clear that there were quite a few unionist Protestant people who had either changed their mind or else had always
Or in the process of changing their mind.
Open to the idea of becoming part of a united Ireland. Pat, peace
all
go
the best,
with you.
Jude.
Peace.
Love be with you.
Peace.
Have a nice one. Have a nice weekend. Bye, Jude.
Bye.